In Charles Dickens' holiday classic, A Christmas Carol, the character of Tiny Tim dies in one timeline, but is saved by Ebenezer Scrooge's charity in another. But what disease could Tiny Tim have had that could have been cured in the 19th century simply by throwing money at it? Luckily for us, one Dr. Russell W. Chesney wanted to know the answer to this as well, and ended up publishing a paper on it, Environmental Factors in Tiny Tim's Near Fatal Illness, in the Journal of American Medical Association Pediatrics. So what conclusion did he come up with? To begin with, he notes the poor in London at the time lived in filthy, crowded conditions shaded by soot-filled skies. This latter was caused by the burning of coal, which put sulfur and other particles between the sun and London's inhabitants, absorbing most of the UVA and UVB rays. Noteworthy here is that the absorption of the UVB rays by the skin is key to vitamin D synthesis in humans. So at the time, the predominant way that Londoners got vitamin D was through their diet. For the poor, however, the foods naturally high in vitamin D, like fish, certain fats, liver, milk, or eggs, were completely out of reach. Thus, the poor children of London were highly susceptible to rickets, such that it was even at one point termed the English disease. This is a disease that causes weak bones in children and can include, among other issues, stunted growth, bone fractures, and general bone pain. Looking at what might have ultimately killed Tim, children with rickets were more susceptible to respiratory diseases like pneumonia and TB. Bob, of course, only earned a meager 15 shillings a week, enough to buy only about 4 loaves of bread, as well as whatever Sister Martha earned as a hatmaker's apprentice. Adding dairy and fish and more calories and diverse nutrition in general to Tim's diet, Scrooge's newfound generosity would have provided sufficient vitamin D to cure rickets, and the overall effect would have been a boosting of Tim's immune system. In addition, if the generosity included trips to the country, the fresh air and extra sunshine would have helped as well. But was this what Dickens was actually thinking about when he wrote the character? After all, it turns out it wouldn't be until the late 1910s that it would be definitively known that you could cure rickets with ultraviolet light and/or specific dietary changes. And for reference here, A Christmas Carol was written in 1843. So it might seem at first glance that this could not have been what Dickens was thinking about. However, despite the cause of rickets not being definitively known when A Christmas Carol was written, there was a speculated belief that nutritional deficiencies particularly played a role in rickets at the time. And it turns out we know definitively that Dickens also believed this. For example, on June 24th, 1865, Dickens wrote, "One of the worst forms of scrofula, rachitism, or rickets arises under the influence of chilly dwellings and insufficient nourishment and milk deprivation in infants." Thus, it is generally thought that this is indeed what poor Tiny Tim was suffering from, that access to more money would have relatively quickly cured. And for more on the fascinating tale of the origin of Dickens' Christmas Carol, which is one of my favorite pieces we've ever covered, do go check out our deep dive into it over on our sister channel, Highlight History, link below.